What is happening, everybody? Greg Ehrenberg here from Stokastic.com. We're approaching week 1 of the NFL season, and we're going to talk a little bit of Reignmakers here. We'll talk NFL in general. If you guys have any questions, comments for myself, really about anything pertaining to football, we could cover it on this show. But like I mentioned, we're sponsored here by DraftKings Reignmakers. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, week 1 starting today. If you're watching the show, pretty good chance that you know that the NFL season is going to be starting today, and there's going to be big slates over in Reignmakers for DraftKings every single weekend. And if you guys want to get in the door, here's the easiest way you could do it. Get a free starters pack. There's a link below. It's going to get you a pack totally for free. You get cards that are going to help you build out a lineup. So you can get a player at each position. You get to pick a quarterback, and then the rest of the lineup gets filled in around that with some random cards. So a really fun way to get your foot in the door. And like I said, it is 100% totally free to claim that starters pack. And there's a link for that below in the description box. Now, if you guys have any questions for myself at all, I put out a tweet on Twitter. You can reply to that and I'll answer it. Or if you're watching in the YouTube chat and you want to ask me a question or two about really anything pertaining to the slate, my ears are open. I'm doing the show by myself, and I can engage with all of you guys over the course of this 30 minutes that we're going to be hanging out here. So add those questions into the chat, and I'm going to share some data on screen. And if there are no questions, I'm just going to start by talking about the main slate, and then we could throw in some showdown in here as well. And by the way, in our current data right now, we're under the assumption that Travis Kelce is not going to play today. So our current projections, ownership projections, all of that are under the assumption that there will be no Travis Kelce tonight. But if we're looking at Reignmakers, a couple of different things that I think are going to be a good piece of information for us to look at over at Stokastic.com that I've pulled up on screen. One here is going to be our top stacks tool, where we could look at, like which teams are expected to be the highest scoring stacks for DraftKings purposes. That is behind the paywall. It's premium content first, but this is totally free. This here is our football projections for Reignmakers, as well as we have the floor prices in for all the different players in here. So this is a really good way to build out some lineups. And let's say you just want to find the best values of the week, something that has like a really good points per dollar value. This is going to help you for sure. So it's stuff like, well, players towards the top are going to be a lot of players that are projected for, like mediocre fantasy points, but then are just really cheap on the secondary market. So if you look at somebody like Greg Zuerlein here, we have projected for 8.91 fantasy points for this week, and you could find his cards for as cheap as 62 cents. So you'll see here that we have the points per dollar projection. So for each dollar that you spend here on Greg Zuerlein, it's expected to return 14.36 in terms of fantasy points per dollar. So I think this is going to be a really cool, useful tool that I plan on these shows to really highlight. And that's something we could do here, is we could try to find ways to recommend players and build out lines based on what the prices are in the secondary market, because maybe you guys didn't get, the wide receiver you wanted in a pack or something like that. And I think this is going to be a really useful way that we could work together to build out some of these lineups. Now let's look to see if we got any questions on Twitter. And not exactly. Somebody did respond and said, meatball parm forever. Not really a question. That's more of a comment, but from Matthew LA. I appreciate it. Meatball parm forever. Matthew bringing up some good points there. As for myself, very lactose intolerant. I can't eat meatball parms. Used to love meatball parms, but not as much anymore. But Matthew, I understand where you're coming from. So that's our kid. That's the first Reignmakers question the entire season is meatball parm for all. Now let's go ahead and try to figure out what some of the best ways are to make some of the top stacks using the tools we have on the screen here. So for starters, let's look at the Cincinnati Bengals. We have 3 teams this weekend that are projected with north of 10% chance to be the top scoring stack of the slate. One is the Cincinnati Bengals, one is the Los Angeles Chargers, one is the Miami Dolphins. Something else of note here as well is that if a player is a superstar, if you guys aren't familiar with the way Reignmakers works, you can only play one superstar in each lineup. We do have designations in here that are going to say whether a player is a superstar or not. Let's look at the players' names. Let's start with Joe Burrow. What are the prices of Joe Burrow on the secondary market? All right. So Joe Burrow, who, by the way, is not a superstar designation for Joe Burrow. The cheapest available Joe Burrow core card is going for $18.95. That is going to be his play action card right here. And then the cheapest available rare card for him is actually from a booster set, which is $85. So let's go into the assumption we want to make a Bengals stack. Going off here, what we know about Joe Burrow not being a superstar does mean that we're going to be able to stack him with Ja'Marr Chase, who is a superstar. If you had a stack, obviously, they're both the quarterback and the wide receiver superstars. You wouldn't be able to play them together. But let's see. If we wanted to go out and build a Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase stack, Ja'Marr Chase, it would, let's see. Let's put in his, how do you spell Ja'Marr Chase? Whoa, what a start I'm off to here. Ja'Marr Chase, let's see, because where does the apostrophe go? Ja'Marr Chase is spelled J-A, then the apostrophe. All right, there we go. So J-A apostrophe M. All right, here. Just the easiest to scroll down. My spelling skills really, really on display right here to kick us off here. But anyway, if we look at the prices of Ja'Marr Chase, we can see that Ja'Marr Chase is available for, at the cheapest, $16. Keep in mind, like I said, he is a superstar. So if you had a lineup that has Ja'Marr Chase in it, you can't play Ja'Marr Chase and then also have that lineup, say like Christian McCaffrey, who's also a superstar. But we have Ja'Marr Chase is available for $16 at the cheapest as a core. And then the cheapest rare Ja'Marr Chase is going to be available for, it's going to be on the next page. Yeah, so $80 is the cheapest Ja'Marr Chase rare. So if you want to make a Ja'Marr Chase, Joe Burrow stack at the core level, that's going to run you, what was it, about $35 if you wanted to go with that. But let's see what T. Higgins is going for. And I do think you can make a case that a Joe Burrow T. Higgins stack in some respects is a little bit more valuable than a Ja'Marr Chase Joe Burrow stack, just because you're still getting a lot of upside, but you're also getting yourself the ability to play another superstar in that lineup. Because we look at the price points per dollar of Ja'Marr Chase, it is, all right, 1.17 for Ja'Marr Chase. 1.17 for Ja'Marr Chase. If we put in T. Higgins a little bit better of a value because we have his rush cards with a low ask of $10. So 1.43 is the points per dollar price for T. Higgins. Whereas, once again, if we go back to Ja'Marr Chase's points per dollar was 1.17. So while there is no actual salary cap in Reignmakers football, we do have to consider the fact that still we're spending our own money to get some of these cards. We want to make sure we're getting the most bang for our buck. So with that in mind, I do like the T. Higgins to Joe Burrow combination a little bit more than the Joe Burrow to Ja'Marr Chase combination. And I think it's a little bit cheaper here. So in the long run, I do think that would be a little bit more profitable here. Now let's go and see the next stack on here. So we've got the Los Angeles Chargers. So let's look at Justin Herbert. We'll look at Keenan Allen. We'll look at Mike Williams. And we'll see what kind of stands out there. So the price of Justin Herbert cards. I am so bad at spelling today. And this isn't even a hard, like Justin Herbert. I put an extra space in there. All right, Herbert. Don't put me in the spelling bee this year. All right, so Justin Herbert card. One thing we have to note here is that Justin Herbert is a superstar. And off the top of my head, I'm fairly sure Austin Eckler is also a superstar. I'll double check that to be sure here. But that means that we're not going to be able to build lineups that have both Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler in them, which does eliminate one stacking option. I normally don't really think of running backs as the best stacking options with quarterbacks, but Austin Eckler is such a capable pass catcher out of the backfield that I do think it changed the scenario a little bit. We also have in here that I think it adds a little bit more interest to this. Chargers playing the Miami Dolphins this weekend. If you look at our top stack odds here, we have the Dolphins with a 10.8% chance to be the top scoring stack. The Chargers a 12.8% chance. So this is a game that we're projecting to be super high scoring. So you could go out and make some, full game stacks here. Let's look at Tua. Let's look at Justin Herbert. Let's look at Tyreek Hill and look at a lot of the other weapons here and try to figure out like what the best way is to game stack Chargers Dolphins. Because based on our projections, I do think this is the number one game to target for Reignmakers this week. All right, but anyway, Justin Herbert, we have to take note of the fact that he is a superstar, which could have me leaning a little bit more towards Tua. So if we wanted to make a game stack of this, all right, so Herbert as a core, the cheapest available is $14.84, so 1.53 points per dollar is the best available value that we have on a Justin Herbert here. Let's see if we look at Tua. Not quite as much value on Tua, actually, in terms of points per dollar, because his low ask here is $15.99, so 1.21. But keep in mind that we're going to keep a superstar space open if we don't go with Herbert here. So I'm a little more inclined to go with Tua if we're trying to build out some optimal game stacks. All right, so if we're going Tua at QB in this lineup, let me double check. Eckler superstar, correct? Eckler is a superstar. So I don't really want to play Eckler in these lineups because I know that we have Tyreek Hill is also a superstar. So if we're looking at all of the possible superstar options from this game, we have Justin Herbert, we have Austin Eckler, we have Tyreek Hill. I'm most apt to play Tyreek Hill of all of those. We have Tyreek Hill projected for north of 20 fantasy points. His floor is $16.45. The ask price here, or I should say the asking price floor is $16.45. If you're looking to get a rare of Tyreek Hill, by the way, the floor is $75.69. But this is where I'd look to go, is with Tyreek Hill. And if you're going with Tyreek Hill, what does that mean? We can't play Justin Herbert in that lineup. We can't play Austin Eckler. So by default, the quarterback is now going to be Tua in this lineup. We've got a nice stack here. Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill. Those are two players I think would make sense to build out the start of our lineup with. And then if we go ahead and look at Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, which of them make the most sense as a run back option? So let's look at points per dollar here, right? And keep in mind, any players we buy here, they're good for the entire season. They're good for the entire postseason. They're also good for the preseason as well. But you don't have to only think of them in terms of this week. It's also, a long-term investment that we're making in the prospects of these players. But Mike Williams, we've got Mike Williams here, projected for 14 fantasy points. So his points per dollar, $1.78 on Mike Williams. All right, noted. Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen projected for 18.1, 1.77 points per dollar when his low ask is $10.22. All right. This is where we're going here. So we're building out a lineup with everything available on the secondary market. We're making a game stack of this. Two at quarterback, our wide receiver options, Tyreek Hill and Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen projects better. Points per dollar is about similar for the two of them based on secondary market price. So let's go that way. All right, building the lineup together. We've got two wide receiver spots full. We've got the quarterback spot full. And I do think this provides a little bit more upside than the Joe Burrow stack. But like I said, too, when we were looking at lineups and the price of Joe Burrow, I do think Joe Burrow to T. Higgins is a pretty viable combination there. All right. Let's look at running backs. So something else you could do in here that's pretty easy. Just sort by running back. Delete where I wrote Keenan in. And now we can look at some of the best values here. Once again, guys, if you're watching, you have any questions, throw them into the YouTube chat and we can check that out. All right. Let's see. Running backs. So I want to kind of try to balance it, right? Because I don't want to just go out and try to get some like super, super cheap, like Damian Harris type running back here, because while he's good from a points per dollar sense, he's still only projected for 6.75 fantasy points. So let's see which running backs have the best projection, but combined with projection, who is it that has the best, points per dollar here? We also have to keep in mind we've already used our superstar spot. So no superstars are going to be in this lineup. I mean, no superstars at running back, I should say. And how we build out this lineup, we need a quarterback, we need a running back, we need a wide receiver, we need a wide receiver / tight end, and we need a flex play as well. So we've got 3 spots taken in this lineup. All right, so Derrick Henry, superstar. By the way, he's our highest projected running back for this week. I've got him projected for 18.9 fantasy points on Reignmakers. Austin Eckler, our second highest, also a superstar. Josh Jacobs is who we have next. Josh Jacobs here we have projected for 18.34 fantasy points. Going for a pretty high rate on the secondary market in a matchup against the Denver Broncos. We have him project for 18.34 fantasy points, but at that 24.50 floor price at the core, it means we're only getting 0.75 points per dollar. If we're trying to go optimal, he would be the next guy. But let's see if we can find a little bit of a better value that also balances our projections. Well, here's one here. Saquon Barkley, but once again, he's going to be a superstar, and also he's on the primetime slate. I'm actually going to write in here main so we could filter out the primetime players. But something else you could do as well, if you're looking for a specific team, specific players, specific slate, you could put that in. And Saquon Barkley is going to be on the primetime slate this week. All right, so let's get back to this. Looked at Josh Jacobs. He was fairly expensive on the secondary market. Core floor 24.50. Christian McCaffrey. He is also a superstar, though. Bijan Robinson. All right. Well, Robinson's pretty interesting, right? Because if we're looking at Bijan Robinson, he's an unknown quantity. Obviously, really well-regarded prospect, was picked super high in the draft, especially for running back. We never see running backs drafted that highly anymore. So I think that we should definitely think about Bijan Robinson as somebody who could be a top fantasy player for the entire year, and we're getting him at what could be a fairly cheap price right now. Like, would it be crazy if Bijan Robinson finished out the year ahead of Josh Jacobs? Like, did you guys do best ball drafts this year? Bijan Robinson's a first-round pick. Right now, Josh Jacobs is like late second round, early third round, somewhere around there. At one point, we needed a contract dispute. We were able to get Jacobs in like the fourth or fifth round. So when you're talking about, full season, I think that we should look at Bijan Robinson as being like a pretty good player to invest in for the rest of the year. So that's a strong consideration here for me. We got Brandon Katz in chat saying that's a dumb take. Ritter sucks. Atlanta's offense isn't good enough for Robinson to get many touchdown opportunities. That could certainly be the case. But at the same point as well, I do think volume could exceed that. Now, we don't know, right? This is, like I said, this is a shot in the dark. We don't know exactly what Bijan Robinson is going to be this year, but is there upside there? I definitely think there is. And like I said, it could come from volume. He's going to be involved in the run game. He's going to be involved in the pass game. Then we'll see. Also, a follow-up where he said that Bijan Robinson isn't worth taking in the first round. This is Reignmakers. We're not taking anybody in any round. You could take any player that you want right here. I'm way underweight to the field on Bijan Robinson in best ball. I was just using it as an example where he's considerably cheaper than Josh Jacobs for Reignmakers purposes, but at the same time, Josh Jacobs is getting picked later in best ball drafts. In general, though, Brandon, I do have a lot more exposure to Josh Jacobs than I do to Bijan Robinson. Jacobs in best ball is one of my most rostered players. Let's see what else we have here at running back. Nick Chubb, who is also a superstar, so he's not going to fit into this lineup either. We've got Alexander Madison. This could be the leader in the clubhouse right here for Madison. So Madison, obviously not a superstar. There's no more Dalvin Cook out in Minnesota. And the floor price for Alexander Madison, right around $7. So we actually have a really, really good points per dollar value here on Alexander Madison. Madison, I think, is somebody that makes a lot of sense to get. Another one, too, where there's kind of some uncertainty, where just a second ago we were talking about Bijan Robinson and not really knowing what his role is going to be this year, but there's a lot of indications he's going to have a heavy role. I think we'd say the same about Alexander Madison. No more Dalvin Cook there. What was Dalvin Cook's role in Minnesota? We've seen in the last couple of years when Cook has been out, that Madison's basically stepped into the same role that Dalvin Cook has. With that in mind, I think getting cards of Alexander Madison for around $7 makes a whole lot of sense. I do like filling out one of our running back spots with Alexander Madison here. All right, so we looked at a running back. Let's try to fill out a flex spot here. We select running back, wide receiver, and tight ends. And also, I'm going to filter this out. I'm going to say no for the superstar. Because if we go no for superstar, that'll make it right here that we're not going to get any of those superstars to show up in lineups. All right. So of our non-superstar players, we have Josh Jacobs projected the best, followed by Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, by the way, already somebody who we've decided is a pretty good play for this week, considering all the different data that we've looked at. Talked about Bijan Robinson. Here's Madison. Olave looks like a not terrible value. Floor price of $15.76, 1.11 points per dollar. Cam Akers here. By the way, we're talking about offenses that are going to suck this year. Yeah, the Rams. We already got Cooper Kupp injured to start the year. This team, I think, could certainly be a disaster. But you do have Cam Akers, who at only $5.80, I don't think is a horrible purchase on the secondary market when we're considering the possibility of him being a workhorse back for this team. But I do question what the ceiling is going to be for Cam Akers. He could be more of a floor guy than a ceiling, just because of the fact that I do think this Rams team is going to totally suck. Although when healthy, I think Cam Akers is going to get a good amount of carries. Let's keep looking here. If you want to make a double stack, by the way, of the Dolphins-Chargers game, Jalen Waddle could also make some sense. We got a floor price here from at $14.75. Does correlate pretty nicely with the other players in our lineups that we've talked about so far. So we would be able to build a lineup here where we would go Tua at quarterback. We would go to Madison as a really good running back value. Wide receiver, we would go with Tyreek Hill, also our superstar. Wide receiver / tight end, we would be going with Keenan Allen. And then once again, also, we would get Waddle as the flex play. So like for week one, I think it's a really strong game stack. And once again, going back to our top stacks tool, we have the Dolphins with the third highest odds being the top scoring stack in week one. And we've got the Chargers the second best. So I think that's a really good looking lineup that we could potentially make here. In terms of like Philly stacks, it's kind of hard when you're starting off your quarterback spot with Jalen Hurts as the superstar. So I'd be like a little against that. If I'm playing a lineup and trying to optimize where I'm playing the superstar, it's going to be a running back or wide receiver. It's not going to be a quarterback, because the difference between the average expected results for a superstar quarterback compared to a non-superstar quarterback, the difference is smaller than, say, a superstar running back or superstar wide receiver compared to a non-superstar player at those positions. Let's look at some of the other quarterback values, though. Let's go and look at QB. We'll see what stands out. And then we've got a few minutes left here. If you guys haven't done yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to get that starters pack for Reignmakers, click on the link below. Totally free starters pack to build out your lineup. And let's see what we have for other quarterbacks that are good values. I'll turn the superstar filter off here, so we're getting some of them in here. And let's sort by points per dollar. All right, so points per dollar. The number one value, points per dollar quarterback here, Baker Mayfield for week one. Make of that what you will. Listen, this team is going to suck, but they're playing Minnesota. The game's going to be high scoring. There's going to be a lot of passing. So if you want to take a cheap quarterback, you could go out and get yourself a Baker Mayfield and build a game stack there. We've got Mac Jones also. Let's see if there's any decent quarterbacks. Also, to the point I was making before about like the value of like a mediocre to bad quarterback compared to the superstar quarterbacks, and why I think you want to fill out your superstar spots with a skill position player. None of us think that Baker Mayfield is terrific, but he's projected for about 16 fantasy points this week. Look, 16.7. Our number one overall highest projected quarterback for this weekend is Justin Herbert at 22.63 as a superstar. So somebody who we do not consider a great quarterback only has a 6-point differential between him and a superstar quarterback. Let's go ahead and look at some of the other points per dollars. Actually, all right, so Baker Mayfield, let's sort by Tampa Bay. If we sort by Tampa Bay, and I'll take the quarterback filter off, or actually, I'll add skill position. All right, so we'll sort by Tampa Bay. I'm going to take tight end off, actually, because I don't really have interest in playing K-Dot, at least not in Reignmakers. All right, so now if we go to, I'm going to turn the running backs off too, because I want to just look at, all right, so we're really narrowing down. I want to find the wide receivers we want to target here with Baker Mayfield. And that's primarily going to be Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. Both of them do rate out as pretty good values here. We've got Mike Evans only has a floor of $5.56. We have him projected for 13.3 fantasy points. We do have Chris Godwin projected a little bit better here, 15.17 fantasy points compared to 13.33. But you are getting a price of about a 50% discount on Mike Evans compared to Chris Godwin, or Mike Evans here, like I said, the low ask is $556 compared to Chris Godwin being at $790. So all things being considered, I do slightly prefer the lower asking price of Mike Evans if you guys are really looking to be cost conscious. All right, let's look at Thursday Night Football. Who are the best options for Thursday night? All right, so let's sort by Detroit and Kansas City. Detroit and KC. Who are the best points per dollar? Actually, I'm going to sort by fantasy points. And by the way, keep in mind, mentioned this before, we are currently projecting the for there to be no Travis Kelce in the lineup tonight. We're expecting that Kelce is going to be out. He's not in our projections right now. And why can't I find Mahomes in here right now? Where is Mahomes? Mahomes is getting filled. Oh, here he is. All right. So Patrick Mahomes is. Why is this projection getting filtered out? All right. I don't understand that. But either way, let's go back and look at the main slate then. And let's see if there's any tight ends that are standing out. Because we haven't really talked about tight end. It's a position where you don't have to play a tight end in just the normal contests on Reignmakers. If you're playing the expanded roster contest, then the tight ends come more into play. But let's sort by the tight ends. And actually, I'll sort by projection and see what looks like decent value here. Mark Andrews, who is not a superstar. Not really bad value here, actually, on Mark Andrews. We do him project for 13.47 fantasy points. He's got a low ask of 7.78. If you're going to be playing a lineup with Lamar Jackson, I mean, I pretty clearly think the best stacking option would be Mark Andrews. Baltimore. Go position. Wide receiver as well. Yeah, I mean, there's a pretty big drop-off in our projection. So the number one projected pass catcher that we have for the Ravens is pretty clearly Mark Andrews at 13.47 fantasy points. The next one is Zay Flowers at 7.27. The point being, if you guys have a lineup with Lamar Jackson, trying to figure out the best pass catcher to put him with, the answer is Mark Andrews, who does project as our best tight end for the weekend. 1.73 points per dollar. That is pretty good there. But we're out of time here. That went way faster than I thought it was. For everybody who's in YouTube chat, that was throwing in some questions. Brandon, appreciate you. And anybody else, if you're ever watching this show, we're going to do this every week on Thursday. And any engagements are appreciated. Whatever thoughts you have on the season, throw them in here. Always like engaging with you guys. If you haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out the rest of our football content today. For tonight, we're going to have the NFL Showdown live before lock. Lofty's going to be on there with Neil Orfield. So check those guys out tonight. Have a good one. Catch you later.